There's a specific kind of pain that nobody really talks about. It's not the pain of failure. It's not even the pain of loss. It's the pain of watching time move forward while you feel like you're standing still. You wake up, another birthday passes, another year closes, and somewhere deep inside, a voice starts whispering. Sometimes it's gentle, sometimes it screams. It says, "You should be further along by now." You look around and everyone else seems to have it figured out. They have the career, the relationship, the clarity. They're moving with purpose while you're still trying to decode the instruction manual for your own life. And the worst part? You start to believe that this isn't just a delay. You start to believe that maybe you missed your window. That maybe your moment came and went and you were too afraid, too confused, or too broken to recognize it. If that feeling lives in your chest right now, I need you to stay with me. Because today, we're going to dismantle that lie. We're going to look at the architecture of a meaningful life. And I'm going to show you why the story you've been telling yourself about being behind is based on a timeline that was never real to begin with. Let me ask you something. When did you first learn that you were supposed to have your life figured out by a certain age? Was it from your parents? Was it from watching movies where the hero always seems to know exactly who they are by Act 2? Was it from scrolling through social media and seeing people younger than you closing deals, buying homes, getting engaged? Here's the truth. The timeline you're measuring yourself against isn't universal. It's cultural. It's constructed. And most dangerously, it's invisible. Psychologists call this phenomenon the social clock. It's the unspoken set of age-based milestones that society expects you to hit. Graduate by 22, married by 30, established by 40. And if you deviate from that script even slightly, you feel the weight of judgment, not just from others, but from yourself. But here's what they don't tell you about that clock. It was built for a world that no longer exists. That timeline was designed in an era when people worked the same job for 40 years. When the path from education to career to retirement was linear and predictable. When life expectancy was shorter and options were fewer. But you don't live in that world anymore, do you? You live in a world where career paths twist and evolve, where people change industries 5 times before they find their calling, where the average life expectancy has increased by decades, which means you have more time than any generation before you to explore, to fail, to rebuild, and to bloom. And yet, you're still holding yourself to a deadline that expired before you were even born. So the first step in breaking free is this: recognize the prison. See it for what it is: an inherited script, a fossil of outdated expectations. And once you see it, you can choose to stop performing for an audience that doesn't even exist. We worship straight lines. We love the story of the young prodigy who knew their purpose at age 12 and ascended flawlessly to greatness. We celebrate the entrepreneur who dropped out of college and built an empire by 25. We idolize the Olympian who trained since childhood to stand on that podium. These stories are real, but they are not the only stories, and they are certainly not the majority. For every straight line success, there are 1,000 winding paths that led to something just as beautiful, just as profound. But we don't talk about those paths because they don't fit the narrative. They're messy, they're slow, they require patience. Let me tell you about some of those paths. Alan Rickman didn't land his first movie role until he was 46 years old. Before that, he was a struggling stage actor wondering if he'd ever break through. But when he finally did, he became one of the most iconic actors of his generation. Vera Wang failed to make the Olympic figure skating team. She worked as a fashion editor for 17 years, and then at 40, she designed her first wedding dress. Today, her name is synonymous with bridal elegance. Stan Lee created his first major comic book success, The Fantastic Four, at 39. Before that, he was writing filler comics and considering quitting the industry entirely. He went on to build the Marvel Universe. Samuel L. Jackson struggled with addiction in small roles for decades. His breakthrough came at 46 with Pulp Fiction. Now, he's one of the highest grossing actors in history. What do all of these people have in common? They didn't follow the timeline. They didn't peak early. They wandered. They struggled. They doubted. And then, when the moment finally arrived, they were ready. Not because they were lucky, but because every twist in their path taught them something they needed to know. The detours weren't distractions. They were the education. Right now, you might be looking at your own life and thinking, but I haven't done anything significant. I've just been surviving. Let me challenge that. Let me offer you a completely different lens. You've been in school this whole time, you just didn't realize it. While everyone else was racing ahead on the highway, you were on the scenic route, gathering something far more valuable than speed. You were gathering depth. Think about what you've actually learned in the years you think you've wasted. Maybe you worked a job you hated. You learned resilience. You learned what you will and will not tolerate. You learned that you're capable of enduring more than you thought. Maybe you went through a breakup that shattered you. You learned about your own patterns. You learned what real love actually requires. You learned that you can survive the loss of someone you thought you couldn't live without. Maybe you failed at something publicly. You learned humility. You learned that failure doesn't kill you. You learned that your worth isn't tied to your performance. Maybe you spent years feeling lost, confused, jumping from one interest to another. You learned adaptability. You learned how to learn. You built a library of perspectives that people who stayed in one lane will never have access to. None of this was wasted. None of this was a mistake. It was all curriculum. And the degree you're earning isn't one that gets handed out at a ceremony. It's one that gets written into your character. So stop measuring your progress by what you've accomplished on paper. Start measuring it by who you've become in the process. Because the person you are right now, with all the scars, all the detours, all the lessons embedded in your bones, that person is your greatest asset. That person is what the world actually needs. So how do you move forward from here? How do you actually build a life that honors your own pace instead of apologizing for it? It starts with a single shift in perspective. You need to stop asking, am I behind? And start asking, what am I building toward? Because here's the truth. The people who are truly fulfilled, the ones who built lives they're proud of, they didn't get there by racing. They got there by aiming. They chose a direction. Not because it was fast, not because it was impressive, but because it resonated, because it felt true. And then they moved toward it, slowly, imperfectly, one small decision at a time. So I want you to try something right now. Close your eyes for a moment if you can, take a breath, and ask yourself this question. If I wasn't afraid of being judged, if I wasn't worried about the timeline, if I wasn't comparing myself to anyone else, what would I actually want to build? Not what looks good, not what pays the most, not what your parents want or what society expects. What do you want? Maybe it's a skill you've been too afraid to pursue. Maybe it's a relationship you've been too scared to repair. Maybe it's a version of yourself you've been too ashamed to become. Whatever it is, that's your compass, that quiet pool, that whisper underneath all the noise. And here's the liberating part. You don't have to have the whole map figured out. You don't need to see the end from the beginning. You just need to take the next step, the one right in front of you. Start the conversation you've been avoiding. Enroll in the class you've been delaying. Write the first page of the thing you've been too afraid to start. Not tomorrow, not next month when things calm down. Today, right now, in whatever small way you can. Because momentum doesn't come from waiting for the perfect moment. It comes from moving before you feel ready. Let me leave you with this. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not running out of time. You are exactly where you need to be to learn what you need to learn to become who you're meant to become. Your timeline is yours, and it's unfolding with a precision that you can't see yet but will one day look back on and understand. Every twist, every delay, every moment you thought you were lost, it was all leading you here, to this moment, to this choice. The choice to stop measuring yourself against someone else's mile markers. The choice to stop apologizing for taking your time. The choice to trust the compass inside you, even when the path isn't clear yet. So take a breath, let go of the weight, and start moving toward the thing that resonates. Not because you're racing anyone, but because you're finally ready to build something real. And when you do, you'll realize that all along, you weren't falling behind. You were gathering the pieces, and now it's time to build.